Massachusetts versus Karen Andre.
Ready, Your Honor.
Ready, Your Honor.
The clerk will draw our jury.
You have a panel from which the jury will be selected. 12 names were drawn. As I call your name, please stand into the juror's box. Doris Jenkins, Mary Allack, Donald Wolford, Paula DeFloria, Eileen Monroe, Rena Wallace, Jenny Glasgow, Joe McGonigal, John Harrison, Patty Osgood, Janet Mitchell, Dolores Skagden. Jurors, please rise. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to well and fairly try this case and render a true verdict, so help you God? Say, I do.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, at its close we retire a verdict to return. At its close we retire to the jury room and vote upon your verdict. I instruct you to listen to the testimony carefully and pronounce your judgment to the best of your knowledge. You are to determine if the defendant is guilty or not guilty of the murder of Bjorn Faulkner. Her fate rests in your hands. The district attorney may now proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, on the 6th, the body of a man came hurtling through space and crashed. A disfigured mass at the foot of the Faulkner Ridge. He was thrown or leaped. The defense will claim that it was then before his creditors and acknowledged his ruin. That he found the fall from the roof of the tallest building in Washington from the throne of the world's financial
no, ma'am.
What is your name
My name is Mrs. John Joseph Hutchins.
and your occupation?
I have no occupation. I am the wife of my husband.
What does your husband do?
He is the night janitor at the Faulkner building.
Did Mr. Faulkner have business offices in that building?
Yes, he did.
And did he have a penthouse on the roof of that building?
Oh, yes.
And who lived there?
Well, Mr. Faulkner lived there. That is before he got married.
And after his marriage?
After he got married, Miss Andre lived there, all by herself.
Have you ever seen Mr. Faulkner calling on Miss Andre after his marriage?
Yes, one time
And that was?
on the night of January 16th.
Tell us about it, Miss Hutchins.
Well, it was about 10:30.
Just a moment, how did you know the time?
Well, my husband and I worked for him.
Why didn't your husband work that time?
Well, for the past year or two, he doesn't have much ambition, and when he doesn't, I take his place.
Oh, so on the night of January the 16th, your husband was low on ambition.
Yes, it was about 30 minutes after I got to work that I heard a doorbell from the private entrance ring. I ran to answer it, and it was Miss Andre, and Mr. Faulkner was with her.
Was she alone with Mr. Faulkner?
No, there were two other gentlemen with her.
Who were they?
I don't know.
Had you ever seen them before?
No, never.
What did they look like?
Well, both of them were tall and slender, and one of them had a hat crooked over his eyes, and his coat collar was turned up. He had been drinking.
How do you know?
Well, he staggered around a little.
Did Mr. Faulkner look worried?
No, he looked very happy.
Did he look like a man contemplating self-destruction?
Which?
I mean, did he look as if he would kill himself?
No, unless he died from laughing. Objection, Your Honor.
Wait a minute, hold on. I think it says somewhere, wait a minute. Objection sustained.
Now, what have I gone and done?
Oh, nothing at all. Just answer my questions. Did the others in the party seem happy too?
They were all laughing as they got up into the elevator, except the drunk one.
Did you see any of them leave that night?
Well, the first one left about 15 minutes later.
Who was that?
The drunk one. He didn't seem quite so drunk anymore. He came down the elevator all by himself. I tried to help him, seeing the condition he was in, but he saw me and he ran right up.
Did you see where he went?
He went out the front entrance into a gray coupe, and he drove away fast. I think the cops just got it.
What makes you think that?
Well, there was another car that started up right after him. What car?
The defendant will please keep quiet.
If Miss Andre will let me do the questioning, I may satisfy her curiosity. I was just going to ask, what car, Mrs. Hutchins?
Well, it was a big black one, a sedan, I think. It was parked 2 spaces away from the first one.
How many were in it?
Judge just saw one man.
What makes you think he was after the first car?
Well, it seemed kind of funny that they both started up at the same time.
Did you see the other stranger leave too?
The next one left 10 minutes later.
And then where did he go?
Well, nothing much. He
chair now, Ms. Hutchins.
Thank you.
Very well.
Eloise Van Fleet.
Eloise Van Fleet. Do you solemnly swear?
I do.
Please, may I finish? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Be seated. Your name?
Eloise Van Fleet. Occupation.
Last person to follow was giving me the slip.
Is there something I can help you find?
Private investigator.
What was your last assignment?
Shadowing to Mr. Bjorn Faulkner.
By whom were you hired to do it?
By Mrs. Bjorn Faulkner.
Were you shadowing Bjorn Faulkner on the night of January the 16th?
I was.
Kindly tell us about it.
I start at 6:13 p.m. Mr. Faulkner leaves home at Marblehead. Wears formal dress suit. Drives roast himself alone. Unusual speed all the way to Boston.
Where did Mr. Faulkner go?
He drives up to the Faulkner building and goes in. I wait outside my car. 9:35 p.m. Mr. Faulkner comes out with Miss Andre. Miss Andre is wearing a huge Jordan corsage. They drive away.
Where did they go?
I lost track of it.
What?
Due to an accident.
What accident?
Well, due to Mr. Faulkner's speed, my left fender crashed into a truck, damage to which charged to Mrs. Faulkner.
What did you do when you lost track of it?
Returned to the Faulkner building and waited.
When did they return?
10:30 p.m. exactly. A gray coupe follows him. Mr. Faulkner gets out, helps Miss Andre door of the gray coupe. A handsome gentleman steps out, and together they help out a third gentleman, the latter wearing a gray overcoat. This gentleman shows signs of inebriation.
Then what did you do?
I must explain that I always allow myself time to take nourishment every 4 hours while on duty. Then I sat at a window and watched the door of the Faulkner building.
What did you observe?
Nothing. For 15 minutes. Then the man in the gray overcoat, the tipsy one, comes out and starts the car. The gray coupe, obviously in a hurry, drives out.
Did you see the other stranger leave?
The handsome guy. Yes, 10 minutes later, he gets into a car, stands there at the curb, and drives away south.
Had you ever seen Mr. Faulkner with these two men before?
Nope, first time I ever saw him.
What did you do when they left?
I wait. Mr. Faulkner is now alone in the penthouse with Miss Andre. I'm curious, professionally. So I go up to the nightclub on the roof of the Brooks building. There's an open gallery off the dining room. You go out and you can see the Faulkner penthouse clear as day. I go out.
And then what?
I look.
And then what?
I yell.
What do you see?
No lights. Karen Andre's white gown shimmering in the moonlight. A man in evening clothes, Faulkner, leaning against the parapet. She pushes him with all her strength. He goes over the parapet, down into space.
Then what did you do?
I rush back into the dining room, yell about what I'd seen. A crowd follows me down to the Faulkner building. We find the bloody mess on the pavement and Miss Andre sobbing over it, fit to kill.
Your witness.
Can you tell us, Miss Van Fleet, when you started in the employ of Mrs. Faulkner?
What did you know? Said there's so. October 13th last.
Can you tell us the date of Mr. and Mrs. Faulkner's wedding?
October 12th, the day before.
Exactly, just the day before. In other words, Mrs. Faulkner hired you to spy on her husband the day after their wedding.
It seems so.
What were Mrs. Faulkner's instructions to you when you were hired?
To watch every movement of Mr. Faulkner and report to her in detail. And then, well, the wedding, after the wedding, they used to go up to the Faulkner building every day. I don't know whether he went up to down to his office, up to the penthouse, or Miss Andre came down and visited him at his office. I don't know what is customary.
Did you report that to Mrs. Faulkner?
I did.
Did she seem worried?
I don't believe so.
Mr. Faulkner is the most devoted of husbands, and he loves his wife dearly.
Oh, just how do you know that, Miss Van Fleet?
Those were Mrs. Faulkner's own words.
Now, Miss Van Fleet, can you tell us what time you started up to the Brooks Building, up to the balcony of the nightclub, the top of the Brooks Building, on the night of January 16th?
11:32? Exactly.
How long a walk is it from the Faulkner Building to the Brooks Building?
3 minutes.
What time did you come out on the balcony of the club?
11:57.
So you took 25 minutes to get to the balcony of the club. What were you doing the rest of the time?
Well, they have dancing at the club and other things.
Oh, and did you partake in the other things?
Well, I had a couple of drinks, if I understand the drift of your curiosity, but I certainly
Yeah. Now, you saw Miss Andre pushing Mr. Faulkner off the balcony in the dark, a distance away, and you were, well, shall we say, you had just had a couple of drinks.
And the drinks had nothing to do with it.
Accepted. Exhibit A.
Was that all that you found?
No, up in the roof garden I found a gun. It was about
I will now show you this 32 caliber pistol. Is this the weapon you found?
Yes, it is. You gonna hold that too?
Submit it as evidence.
Accepted. Exhibit B.
Where did you find it?
It was lying under a chair. I picked it up with my handkerchief to be careful of fingerprints. The barrel smelled strongly of powder, which showed it had just been fired.
Did you ask Miss Monterey if this gun was?
Yes, she said it was hers.
How did she explain the shot?
She said that Faulkner got unhappy, and he wrote the letter and put it on the table and told her not to touch it. And then he opened the drawer, pulled out the gun, and when she saw what he was about to do, she struggled with him, and in the struggle, the gun went off, striking Faulkner in the chest.
Miss Andre told you that the gun was in Faulkner's hand when it went off.
Yes, ma'am.
She was positive about that?
Said it 3 times.
Was the gun examined for fingerprints?
Yes, there are the photographs.
And were the police able to identify them?
Yes, they are exactly like these.
And whose are these?
Karen Andres.
And did the gun bear any fingerprints other than Karen Andres?
Other one.
Submit it as evidence.
Accepted. Exhibit C and D.
Now, after the gun went off in Faulkner's hand, what happened next, according to Miss Andre?
She said that Faulkner dropped the gun and yelled that she couldn't stop him, and then he jumped off the roof.
Did you ask her whether they were with her that night?
Yes, she said the 2 gentlemen had, and that she met them for the first time that evening while having dinner with Faulkner.
She told you that she had never seen these 2 men before.
Yes, ma'am.
She was very emphatic about that.
Couldn't shake her.
That is all.
Miss Andre told you that she had been struggling for clothes.
Yes, she was wearing a white dress with pants. It's very embarrassing.
That's all.
Jane Chandler.
Jane Chandler?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Eh? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Please be seated. Your name? Your name? Your name? Jane Chandler. What is your occupation?
Handwriting expert for the Massachusetts Police Department.
Exhibit A.
Nancy Lee Faulkner.
What relation were you to the late Bjorn Faulkner?
I was his wife.
When did you first meet Mr. Faulkner?
In August of last year,
Where did you meet him?
at a ball given by a friend of mine in Newport.
You have heard about Bjorn Faulkner's reputation as the most ruthless of men. Did you find him so on your first meeting?
No, not at all. I found him. He told me that I was the first woman whom he had met that he could respect.
When did you see Mr. Faulkner again?
About 3 weeks later, I had him to my home for dinner, just an informal dinner with father present.
Did you see him often after that?
Yes, quite often. His visits became more frequent until the day he proposed to me.
Please continue.
Well, we went for a ride, Mr. Faulkner and I alone, on a lonely road. Oh, I'm sorry. It's very difficult for me to think about those days. Well, we stopped on this lonely road, and Mr. Faulkner gazed into my eyes and held my hand and said, "Nancy, I love you."
I am sorry, Mrs. Faulkner. If you would wish to be dismissed now and continue
Objection,
tomorrow.
Your Honor. Why, this is a subterfuge staged to gain the sympathy of the jury.
I object to that remark.
I demand a fair trial for my client.
Demand what you like. There will be no interference with my witnesses.
Order, ladies. The jury will ignore these remarks.
I am sorry, Mrs. Faulkner, for this interruption. Please continue.
Well, it was at this time that Mr. Faulkner told me the truth about his fortune, that it was gone. He said he couldn't ask me to marry him because he had nothing to offer me. I said his money meant nothing to me. I loved him just the same.
Did Mr. Faulkner feel hopeless about the future?
No, not at all. I told him it was our duty to protect his enterprises, our duty to the widows and children who had entrusted their savings to him. He told me that my faith in him was like a great driving force propelling him onward, that he could not fail. How could he think of suicide?
Did you remain in Massachusetts after your wedding?
Yes, we made our home in Marblehead, and Mr. Faulkner gave up his penthouse.
Did Mr. Faulkner tell you anything about Miss Andre?
Well, about 2 weeks after we were married, Mr. Faulkner came to me and said, "Dearest, there is something I must tell you about the secretary who has served me for so long." I told him not to be cruel. He didn't have to say a word if he didn't want to. He said, "I must. My marriage to you has become a sacred trust that has regenerated my soul. Karen Andre represents my dark and dreariest years. I am going to dismiss her."
What did you answer?
I said, "We must not be cruel. Perhaps there was something else that he could find for Miss Andre to do." He said he would provide for her financially, but he was going to get rid of her.
Tell me, what did Mr. Faulkner do on the day of January the 16th?
Well, he came home late in the afternoon, as usual. He said he would not be having dinner at home because he was going to dine with 3 friends in town on business, and that he left about 6 o'clock.
Who were the 3 friends?
I don't know. I didn't ask. I usually make it a point not to interview you.
When he said goodbye to you that night?
No, not at all. He kissed me goodbye, and he said he'd try and be home early. I walked him to the door, and I watched him drive away. I stood there for a few moments, thinking how happy we were. What a beautiful dream our love had become. An uplifting relationship built on mutual trust. How could I know that this love, through jealousy, would bring about his death?
Your Honor, we object. Move that the stricken out.
The witness's last sentence may go out.
How do you state your name?
You know it, you just called me.
Just answer my questions without arguments. State your name.
Martha Svensson.
What country do you come from?
A Swede never come from any country but Sweden.
What is your occupation?
I've been the housekeeper.
By whom were you last employed?
By Happy Jan Faulkner, and before that by his father.
And how long have you been employed by them?
I've been in the family 38 years. I remember Happy Jan since he was a little kid.
When did you come to America?
I've been here 5 years.
What were the duties Mr. Faulkner assigned to you?
I keep penthouse for him. I stay even after he go. Then he get married and give penthouse to her. But I never employed by this fund.
Well, now, Mrs. Svensson.
Miss Svensson.
I beg your pardon.
That's all right.
What do you know about Miss Andre's connection with Mr. Faulkner?
Decent woman like me shouldn't know about such things. But sin is shameless in this world.
Tell us about it.
From very first time she come, she tried to get her claws on her father. It is not good thing when secretary forget to secretary.
You mean she was in love with Faulkner?
Only the heart can love. She had no heart. She just want to know too much about her father's business.
Was Faulkner in love with her?
He married to other woman? A good man never loves double.
And why did Faulkner insist on keeping her?
Before he know, she learned too much about his business, and he cannot let her go. When she knows she got her claws on him, she tried to make him spend much money on her. You try to count up all money he waste on that woman.
Can you give us any instances of his extravagance?
I can sew. He had platinum gown made for her. Yeah, I say platinum. Fine mesh, fine and soft as silk, and she wore it on her naked body. She had a fire in the fireplace, and she heated the dress, and she asked me to put it on her as hot as she could stand it. And on her shameless skin, and she laughed like the pagan she is, and said it was men kissing her violent like a tiger.
Your Honor, we object.
Well, these are facts pertaining to the vital questions of this case.
But Your Honor, Mr. Thomas.
Silence, ladies. I shall ask the witness to word her testimony more modestly.
Sin is sin, Judge, any name you call it.
How did Mr. Faulkner act at the time of his marriage to Miss Whitfield?
He was happy man. He was happy, decent man, but found the right road.
Did you know of anything that made him worry in those days? That would bring him to suicide eventually.
No, nothing.
Now tell me, what was Miss Andre's
I like stone speak, but I hear her crying one night, crying and sobbing, and that first only time in her life.
Why was she crying?
I not know. All women cry sometime, just to cry.
Was she crying because she had lost Faulkner?
No, another. I seen her kissing other men the night of her Faulkner's wedding.
What man?
I not know the man. I seen him first time the night of her Faulkner's wedding.
Tell us about it.
I gone to wedding. Was beautiful. My poor happy Jan so handsome, and the lovely bride so white and lovely as a lily. I cried like looking at my own children, but she not go to wedding.
Well, did Miss Andre stay at home?
She stay home. I come home from wedding early. I come in servant's door. She not hear me, but she was home all right, but she was not alone.
Who was with her?
The man out on the roof in the garden. He was holding her in his arms and kissing her, the sinner.
And then?
She step aside. She say something. I not hear her. She So I go
What time did you go?
about 4 o'clock. But I want to know secrets, so I come back.
What time did you come back?
About 10 o'clock. It was dark. She not home, so I wait. Half hour later, I hear them come. I see her Faulkner with her, so I afraid to stay. But before I go, I see 2 gentlemen with her. One gentleman, oh, he drunk.
Who was he?
I not know the man.
Did you know the other one?
The other one, the same one I see kissing Miss Andre on wedding night.
And that's all, Miss Spencer.
Just a minute, Miss Benson, you still have to have one talk with me.
I forgot I say all I know.
Well, you may know the answers to a few more questions. For instance, you stated that you had seen the stranger making love to Miss Andre.
Yeah.
But you also stated you could not hear what was being said. Now remember, you're under oath. If you couldn't hear what was being said, you can't really swear that you did make love to her, now can you?
No, but I can't swear that I didn't either.
Can you really swear you saw him kiss her?
With my own 2 eyes, I saw the sinner do it. Listen, miss. Maybe you don't know experience, but I know that a kiss is love falls into hell.
Now let's confine ourselves to this case. Now you said it was dark when you saw him come in.
Yeah, it was dark.
You just had a swift glance at the 2 gentlemen with them.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what the drunken gentleman looked like?
How can I? No time to notice face. Too dark at door.
So, it was too dark to notice what the drunken gentleman looked like, but yet you were able to identify the other man who you had seen but once before?
Listen, miss. I take oath, as you say, and I am religious woman and respect oath. I say it was same man, and I say it again. What you think? I know nothing about men?
That's all, thank you, Miss Benson.
If Your Honor agrees, the prosecution has one more witness to introduce, Mr. John Graham Whitfield.
Mr. John Graham Whitfield. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth?
Please kiss me.
What is your name?
John Graham Whitfield.
What is your business, or rather your occupation?
I'm president of the Whitfield National Bank.
Were you related to the late Bjorn Faulkner?
I was his father-in-law.
It is obvious, Mr. Whitfield, that you are well qualified to pass judgment on financial matters. Can you tell us about the state of Mr. Faulkner's business immediately preceding his death?
I should say it was desperate, but not hopeless. My bank made a loan of $25 million to Mr. Faulkner in an effort to save his enterprises. Needless to say, that money is lost.
What prompted you to make that loan, Mr. Whitfield?
Well, he was the husband of my only daughter, and her happiness has always been paramount to me. But my motives were entirely personal. Recognizing that countless tragedies to the small investor that a crash would bring, I felt it my duty to do everything in my power to prevent it.
Is it possible that you would risk such a considerable sum in Faulkner's enterprises if you believe they're hopelessly destined to crash?
Certainly not. It was a difficult undertaking, but I felt that a crash could have been prevented had Faulkner lived.
He therefore had no reason to commit suicide so far as his business affairs were concerned?
On the contrary, he had every reason to remain alive.
Mr. Whitfield, can you tell us whether Mr. Faulkner was happy in his family life, in his relations with your daughter?
Miss Flint, I would like to state that I believe the home and the family to be the most important institutions in our lives. You will therefore believe me when I tell you how important my daughter's happiness was to me. And she found perfect happiness with Mr. Faulkner.
Mr. Whitfield, what did you know about Mr. Faulkner personally?
Well, I'll have to admit he had many qualities which I could not admire. He and I were as different as 2 human beings could be. I believed in one's duty to others above all. Mr. Faulkner believed in known as Larry Regan is a notorious gangster who specializes in extorting money for so-called protection. I offer that reward for evidence which would make his arrest and conviction possible.
Mr. Whitfield, can you tell us why you and your daughter disappeared so suddenly shortly after the night of January 16th?
I think the answer is obvious. My daughter was crushed by the sudden tragedy. I hastened to take her away to save her health.
Oh, you love your daughter profoundly.
Yes,
Oh, you've always made it a point that her every wish should be granted.
I can proudly say yes.
When she or you desire anything, you don't stop at the price, do you?
Miss Stevens would never have
Then
to
would
use
you
our money.
refuse to buy her the man she wanted?
Miss
You
Stevens!
wouldn't stop, would you, if you took your entire fortune to break the first unbreakable man you'd ever met?
Your Honor, we object.
Sustained.
Exception. Now, Mr. Whitfield, perhaps you will tell us that your money had nothing to do with Mr. Faulkner dismissing Miss Andre, that no ultimatum was delivered to him.
You are quite mistaken in your insinuation. My daughter was not in the least jealous of Miss Andre.
Oh, I'd be careful of statements like that, Mr. Whitfield. Remember, your daughter was elevated to the high state of matrimony by purchase.
Why, you impudent upstart! Don't you know I can crush you like a worm? As I've crushed many a better young person than you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. That is just what I wanted to do. That's all.
Your Honor, we move that defense counsel's outrageous remarks that led to this incident be stricken out.
The remark may go up.
Move
The
that
people rest.
Move that the case be dismissed for lack of evidence.
Denied.
Exception. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we cannot pass judgment on Karen Andre without passing it on to the human Faulkner. He had put himself outside all human standards. Whether it was above or below them is a question for each of us to decide personally. But I'll ask you to remember this. He was the man who said he needed no reasons for his actions. He was the reason. The man who said that the laws were made for the weak. The strong were the laws. If you'll remember this, you'll understand that the financial condition into which he was thrown was so intolerable to him that he would resort to the most desperate means, including suicide. And that is what the defense will prove. Our first witness will be Sigurd Youngquist.
Sigurd Youngquist.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
What is your name?
Cigar Youngquest.
And what is your current job?
My last job, secretary to Halfall.
How long have you held that job?
I've held that job since the beginning of November, since Miss Andre left.
And what was your last position before that?
I was bookkeeper to Halfall
And how long did you hold that job?
for 5 years.
Did Miss Andre instruct you in your new duties?
Yes, she did.
Did Mr. Faulkner give you Miss Andre's position when she was dismissed?
Yes, she did.
What was Miss Andre's behavior at the time? Did she seem angry, sorry, or resentful?
She was very calm and always explained everything clear.
Did you notice any trouble between Miss Andre and Mr. Faulkner?
Frau lawyer, there could be no more trouble between Miss Andre and Halfall than between you and your shadow.
Now tell me, Mr. Youngquist, have you ever noticed, or have you ever witnessed a business meeting between Mr. Faulkner and Mr. Whitfield?
I've never been present in conferences, but I see Herr Whitfield. He come to our office many times. Herr Whitfield, he not like Herr Faulkner.
Your Honor, I would like to report this incident, which I consider a hoax. A man has just called on the telephone and insisted on speaking with me immediately. When told it was impossible, he gave the following message just brought to me. Do not put Karen Andre on the stand until I get there. No signature. I want to be placed on the stand right away.
May I ask why, Miss Andre?
Ms. Stevens, question me now. I'm afraid it's impossible. We have to finish the examination of Mr. Youngquist.
Then hurry, hurry.
Why in a hurry, Miss Andre? Whom are you expecting?
You don't have to answer that.
Yeah, but in view of such strange behavior.
Silence. I shall ask
job.
That's all, Mr. Youngquist, for witness.
Mr. Youngquist, where were you employed before you started with Mr. Faulkner?
I worked for a bank in Stockholm.
But you were not employed there immediately before your job with Mr. Faulkner?
No,
Where were you at that time?
I was in prison.
Oh, so you were in jail. On what charge?
Embezzlement?
From your employer?
Yes.
You absconded from your bank with 30,000 kroner, didn't you?
Yes, I did. But half thought that he got me out of prison, and he gave me a chance to go straight.
Oh, yes. Faulkner did. He gave you a chance to go straight. You had been employed by Mr. Faulkner for 5 years, haven't you?
Yes.
And did you know all that now that he was a swindler?
I did not know that.
Bringing financial operations of his work?
I knew that half thought he could do what other people could not do.
How do you know that?
Because he was half Faulkner.
Oh, I see. The king could do no wrong.
Frau the lawyer, people like you and me need a man like half Faulkner. We take off our hats. We bow. We take orders. We do not ask questions.
Splendid, my dear Mr. Youngquist. Your devotion to your master is worthy of admiration. You would do anything for him, wouldn't you?
Yes, I have that line for him.
And are you very devoted to Miss Andre, too?
Miss Andre, she served half Faulkner.
Then such a little matter as a few lies for your master's sake would mean nothing to you?
I have not lied. Half Faulkner is not alive. He cannot instruct me to lie.
No, we had always based our business as a war. And when any war reaches a crisis, someone has to be sacrificed. The time for my sacrifice had come, but it was harder on him than it was for me.
Then why did Mr. Faulkner dismiss you 2 weeks after his death?
He was forced to. Whitfield refused to advance the money until it had been done.
What reason did he offer?
It was Miss Whitfield's ultimatum. I had to be discharged.
And did Mr. Whitfield rent the loan after you were dismissed?
No, Bjorn took it.
How did he take it?
By forging Whitfield's signature on $25 million worth of securities.
How do you know that?
I helped him to do it.
Did this $25 million help Mr. Faulkner?
Only temporarily. Bjorn had stretched his credit to the utmost, and there was no more to be had. He knew it was the end.
What were his plans?
You don't find men like Bjorn Faulkner cringing before a bankruptcy commission, and you don't find them locked in jail.
Well, and the alternative?
He wasn't afraid of the world. He had committed to it as his master. He was going to leave it when and how he wanted.
Harry, stop it! Pull it away from me!
Larry, you promised to stay away!
What is the meaning of this?
That's the man.
don't
That's the
understand.
man I've seen kissing her, the sinner.
Your Honor, I feel this man not be allowed to testify.
Silence, order.
Your Honor, don't believe a word this man says. He lied. He loved me. Oh,
Listen, sacrifice is useless.
what are you talking about?
Faulkner is dead.
Dead?
You're on trial for his murder. Didn't you know he was dead?
No, she didn't know that. When she was arrested for Faulkner's murder, he was still
But
alive.
he is still alive.
He's dead. Bada boom, bada bing, he's dead, Karen.
Not Bjorn. I don't believe you. He's waiting for me. I don't believe you.
Court, attention. Superior Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is now in session. The Honorable Judge William Heath presiding.
The Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Karen Andre.
Ready, Your Honor.
If your honor please, I want to report that I have issued a warrant for Larry Regan Redden, as he has obviously been accomplice in this murder. But he has disappeared. He was last seen with his friend's car.
Hey, who's this guy? Keep your shirt on. Who's not a hook me on? Who's this guy? You think I came here to give you guys a thrill? Listen, you don't have to issue any warrants. If she's guilty, I'm guilty.
The defense may proceed.
Darren Andre.
Miss Andre, when you first took the stand yesterday, did you know the whole truth about this case?
No.
In view of certain circumstances which have arisen, do you wish to retract any of your testimony?
No.
When you first took the stand, did you intend to shield anyone?
Yes.
Whom?
Bjorn Faulkner.
Do you still find it necessary to protect him?
No, it is not necessary anymore.
Do you still claim Bjorn Faulkner committed suicide?
No, Bjorn Faulkner did not commit suicide. He was murdered. I didn't do it. Please believe me. Not for my sake, because I don't care what you do to me now, but because you cannot let his murder remain unpunished. I'll tell you the whole truth. I've lied to the inquest. I've lied to my attorney. I was going to lie here. But everything I've told you so far has been true. Now I'll tell you the rest.
When court adjourned yesterday, you were about to tell us about Mr. Faulkner's way out of his difficulties.
I said that Bjorn was going to leave to kill himself. I did push a man's body off the penthouse that night, but that body was dead before I touched it.
Was Miss Andre?
Bjorn wanted to be reported as dead, but he didn't want any searches or investigations afterwards, so he decided to stage a suicide and then disappear. I was to go with him. But we needed somebody to help someone we knew was Larry Regan.
What made you believe that Larry Regan would help with so dangerous an undertaking?
He loved me.
And he agreed in spite of that?
He agreed because of that.
Please explain this, Miss Andre. Is it
Well, Regan was to get a body for us. On the night of January 16th, Lefty O'Toole, a gunman, was shot down by rival gangsters. Regan was to steal the body. Lefty's height, hair, and measurements were the same as Bjorn's, and that was the man's body I pushed off the penthouse.
Was that the extent of Mr. Regan's help?
No, Regan used to be an air pilot. He was to get an airplane and fly Bjorn to South America. That day, January 16th, Bjorn transferred $10 million, the $10 million left over from the Whitfield investment, to 3 separate banks in Buenos Aires under the assumed name of Ragnar Hebrew. A month later, I was to meet him at the Hotel Continental in Buenos Aires. Until then, the 3 of us were not to communicate. No matter what happened, we were not to reveal a secret.
Tell us what happened on January 16th.
On January 16th, Bjorn came to my house. I'll never forget his smile when he stepped off the elevator. He loved danger. We had dinner together, and then afterwards we went to Regan's place. Regan dressed the body in traveling clothes, the gray overcoat and the hat. Then the 3 of us drove back to my house with the body. Bjorn wanted to be seen entering the building, so I didn't use my key. I rang the bell. We were all dressed formally as if for a party, and Bjorn and Regan supported the body as if he were a drunken friend. The wife of the night janitor let us in, and we went up in the elevator.
And then what happened?
Bjorn exchanged clothes with the corpse. He then wrote the letter and propped it on the center table, where anyone could find it. Then the 3 of us had a drink, and Bjorn and Regan leaned the body out, leaning against the parapet. Then we said goodbye. Bjorn was the first to go. He went down in the elevator. I stood and watched the indicator needle moving, and when it stopped, I knew he was gone.
And then?
Regan was to leave a few minutes later. He was to meet Regan 10 miles outside of the city where he had stashed his plane. I waited alone for an hour. The penthouse was silent. I didn't stay in the garden with the body. I stayed alone on my bed in my room. The clock next to the bed ticked in the darkness, and when an hour had passed, I knew that Bjorn and Regan were safely on their way to South America. So I got up, I tore my dress to make it look like a struggle, and then I went out to the garden. I looked down, and the world seemed so far away. I picked up the gun. I fired a shot into the air to explain the gun wounded O'Toole's body were to be discovered. I must have been nervous. I forgot all about fingerprints. I dropped the gun, and then I pushed the body over the parapet. I thought that all of Bjorn's troubles were...
That's all, Miss Andre.
Miss Andre, you said you lied at the inquest,
Yes.
and you lied to your attorney.
Yes.
And the story you have just told us here is entirely different from the one you came to court prepared to tell.
It is.
Then why should we believe a word of it? How are we to know when you're lying and when you're telling the truth?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Miss Andre, tell me, didn't Mr. Faulkner have a clear conception of the difference between right and wrong?
Bjorn Faulkner didn't think of things as right or wrong. To him, it was only you can or you can't, and he always could.
And yourself, didn't you object to helping him in all his swindles?
To me, it was only he wants or he doesn't.
You loved Bjorn Faulkner,
Yes,
such as he was?
because he was such as he was.
Exactly, Miss Andre. Now tell me, what would you do if a woman were to take away from you this man you worship so insane? If she changed the ruthless brute you love into her own ideal of an upright man, would you still love him?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
I would like to answer that, Your Honor. I would like the district attorney to know that she is insulting Bjorn Faulkner's memory.
You do, but you thought nothing of insulting him while he was alive by dividing your love with a gangster.
Larry Jones.
Objection.
Larry,
Sustained.
you're mistaken, Miss Flint. Regan loved me, and I did not love him.
And he didn't demand your love or his help?
He demanded nothing.
You didn't ask for his help to take revenge on your first lover?
No.
Why so particular, Miss Andre? Is there much difference between a swindler and a gangster?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You said you were the only one who knew all the details of Faulkner's swindling activities.
Yes.
You had enough information to send him to jail at any time?
I would never do that.
But you could if you wanted to.
I suppose so.
Well, Miss Andre, isn't that the explanation for Faulkner's visit to you after his marriage? He had reformed. He wanted to avoid the crash, but you held it over his head. You could expose him and ruin him, and before he made good for his crimes. Which was it that held it in your hands? Love or fear?
Bjorn Faulkner didn't know the meaning of the word fear.
Now, tell me, Miss Andre, who knew about that transfer of $10 million to Buenos Aires?
Bjorn, myself, and Regan.
Not just yourself and Regan alone. With your knowledge of his business and your ability to forge his name, could not you and Regan alone have transferred that money?
That would not have been necessary. Bjorn would have given it to me had I asked.
Now, Miss Andre, Bjorn Faulkner kept you in extravagant luxuries.
Yes.
You hated to change your mode of living. You hated to see him turn his fortune over to his investors, to see him poor.
No one was ever seen poor.
No, of course not, because you and your gangster lover were planning to murder him and get the $10 million nobody knew about.
Objection!
Sustained.
You have heard it testified that Bjorn Faulkner had no reason to commit suicide, that his marriage to Miss Whitfield had given him the first happiness he had ever known. And you hated him for that happiness, didn't you?
You don't understand Bjorn Faulkner.
Well, maybe I don't understand him, but that's partnership with a swindler the first day we met was the world over. You helped in a $25 million fortune. This you told us proudly, flaunting your defiance of all sense of honesty, and you don't expect us to think you are capable of murder?
You're mistaken, Miss Flint. I am capable of murder.
That's
For
all.
Bjorn Faulkner's
That
sake.
is all.
Florence Regan. Florence Regan. He's always there to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So how do you gone?
How do you? Nice sweater.
What is your name?
Lawrence Reagan.
What is your occupation?
Right now, unemployed.
How long have you known Karen Andre?
5 months.
Where did you first meet her?
Well, I met her at Faulkner's office. Went to do some business with him, and when I met his secretary, I gave up the business.
How did you happen to become friendly with Miss Andre?
First meeting wasn't exactly friendly. As I say, when I went to Faulkner's office, she said, if you don't have enough money to buy a dozen of vodkas, you don't have any business with my boss. So I says, all right, I'll think it over. Only next day, I thought more of her. So I sent her a dozen of vodkas. That's how it all started.
Did you know Miss Andre loved Mr. Faulkner?
I knew it. I couldn't help it. So I just,
You never expected her to share your feelings?
no.
You never made the attempt to force them upon her?
You have to know all this.
I'm afraid you do.
Yeah, I forced her to kiss her once. It was the night of Faulkner's wedding. She was unhappy, lonely. She said, we haven't mentioned anything about this since.
When did Miss Andre first tell you of Faulkner's plans to escape to South America?
About 2 weeks before we pulled her up.
Was Lefty O'Toole one of your men?
No.
Were you connected with his murder in any way?
No, I'm sorry.
I mean, you actually had no definite knowledge of his planned murder?
No, let's just say I had a way of guessing.
Tell us what happened on January 16th.
Well, it all happened like Miss Andre said, only she knows half the story. I know the rest of it.
Tell us what happened after you left the penthouse.
Well, I left 10 minutes after Faulkner. He had taken my car to cover up his identity. I had one of my men leave another car at the door for me, so I stepped in at full speed.
Where did you go?
I went about 10 miles out to Meadow Lane. I had left the plane there earlier in the evening. Faulkner was to get there first, and when I got there, we were both supposed to leave for South America.
What time did you get there?
It's about midnight. I can remember there was a bright moon. I saw tire tracks in the mud lead off the trail where Faulkner's car had passed. I drove out that way, and then I thought I'd lose my mind. The plane was gone.
Or what did you do?
Searched for about 2 hours. I found Faulkner's car, and he said he was gonna leave it. It was empty, the lights turned off, the keys in the switch. There was another set of tracks leading to where the plane had taken off. But Faulkner wasn't a pilot, and he couldn't fly the plane by himself.
Well, were there any clues to this mystery?
Yeah, there was a car hidden in the brush.
What kind of a car?
A big black sedan.
What did you do?
I wanted those cars, was, so I crawled in the back seat, settled down, and I waited.
How long did you have to wait?
I waited the rest of the night.
And then what did you do?
Well, then I saw the owner coming back. He looked weird. He had no hat on. His clothes were like grease spotted and wrinkled.
And then what did you do?
Well, I saw him approach the car. He goes over the door, saw me in the back seat, and he gave a stop, like, like he had been struck or something.
And what did he say?
Well, I woke up, rubbed my eyes, and I said, "Oh, it's you." And he said, "Well, who the hell are you?" And I said, "Lawrence Regan." I said, "Maybe you're hurting me. I've been in a little trouble. I needed a place to hide out for a while." I said, "Finding this car is kind of convenient." But he said, "Well, that's too bad." He says, "I'm in a hurry, so we're going to have to get out because I got to go."
And did you get out?
Well, I stretched out again, and I said, "So what's the big hurry?" He said, "None of your business." I said, "Yeah, well, I want to hear the whole story."
What did he say?
He just muttered at first. He didn't say nothing. He looked at me, and he takes out this checkbook. And he says, "Would $5,000 be enough?" I said, "It'll do. Lawrence Regan's the name. Matter of fact, I got the check right here." Oh, wait, that's my neighbor upstairs. Oh, there it is.
I offer this check in evidence.
What is all this nonsense? Who's the man
Who is
that
the
gave
man,
you that
Mr.
check?
Regan?
Hey, the clerk's got the check. Let her read it to you.
Kindly read the check.
Paid to the honor of Lawrence Regan, the sum of $5,000. Signed John Raymond Whitfield.
Why, this is an outrage.
And see that check.
Right there. We offer this check in evidence.
Objection.
Objection overruled. Admitted evidence.
I offer this check in evidence. What did you do after you received this check, Mr. Regan?
I pulled my gun and I stuck in his ribs. I said, "Listen now, you louse. Where'd you take Faulkner?"
Your Honor, is this man to be allowed to make such statements?
The witness is allowed to testify. If it is proven to be perjury, he will suffer the consequences. Please proceed.
What did he answer, Mr. Regan?
He didn't say anything at first. So I stuck the gun hard in his rib. "Listen, I got no time to waste either. Where did you take Faulkner?"
Did you get any information out of him?
No, not a word. I talked and threatened. I let him go. I knew I could always get him. And I didn't want to kill him yet.
And then, did you try to find Faulkner?
That was the second. I went back home. I jumped into some flying clothes. I got another plane and I flew to Buenos Aires. I got there. I started searching and advertising in the papers. But nobody came for the $10 million we had transferred under the name of Ragnar Hedman.
Did you try to communicate about this with Miss Andre?
No, we said until we wait, wait at least a month. We keep in touch with each other. Then I heard she got arrested for Faulkner's murder, and I laughed. But I couldn't say anything because I didn't want to betray Faulkner if he was still alive. So I just waited.
Well, what were you waiting for?
I was waiting for a month to pass. February 16th, I go over to the Hotel Continental in Buenos Aires, and I sat every day, every hour, and I waited. He didn't come.
And then,
I knew he was dead then. So I came back to Boston. About 2 days ago, we started searching for my plane.
did you find it?
Yeah, I found it in a deserted valley in New Hampshire. It had been landed and set fire to. I could tell by the rings of the serial number.
And was the plane empty?
No, there's a body of a man inside of it.
Could you identify?
Nobody could. It was just a burned out skeleton. Oh, but it had 2 bullet holes. One through the right hand and one above the heart. One shot over the heart.
Your witness.
Just, what is Step aside with a grand gesture and again throw this same woman back into the arms of this same man.
Your Honor,
I loved her.
You did? Then why did you allow Faulkner to visit her after his marriage?
Just rare privilege.
You two didn't hold a blackmail plot over his
Oh,
head?
you got any proof of that?
Her association with you is the best proof.
objection,
Sustained.
How did you kill Faulkner in the penthouse that night?
objection,
Sustained.
You deny having any part in Faulkner's murder.
I do.
You deny being an accomplice to that murder.
I do.
But you admit knowledge of the fantastic plot Ms. Andre just described.
I do.
To what extent did you participate?
Hey, Miss Flynn, I just merely provided the corpse, that's all.
And nothing else?
Nothing else.
Exhibit B, please. Do you recognize this gun?
No.
Perhaps I shall refresh your memory. This is the gun found in the penthouse. The gun Miss Andre claims she fired in the air. The gun she claims.
No.
Affidavit, please. I have here an affidavit which states that a 32.90 was sold by a store in New Hampshire to Lawrence Woodley.
There is no CC3490 on here, Miss Flynn.
No, did you ever hear of the heat test?
No.
The number on this gun has been filed off, but when heated red hot, it still discloses the serial number CC3490.
this is satisfactory.
Submitted.
Hey, I'd like to see it.
Me too.
Can I see it, please? Thank you. Accepted Exhibit F.
You admit being in the apartment with Miss Faulkner and Miss Andre and Mr. Faulkner on the night of January the 16th?
I do.
Then perhaps you can tell us where is your other accomplice, the man who played the drummer?
Lefty O'Toole? I can tell you his exact address. Evergreen Cemetery, Whitfield Family Memorial, which by the way is the swankiest place that Lefty's ever been.
Now, let me get this clear. You claim that the body in Evergreen Cemetery is Lefty O'Toole,
Yes,
and the man you found in the burned plane is Bjorn Faulkner.
exactly. And by the way, Lefty too is the same exact body that was thrown off the penthouse.
Well, what is to prove it isn't the other way around? Supposing you did steal O'Toole's file, what is to prove that you didn't stage this fantastic thing yourself? That you didn't plant the body and the airplane in New Hampshire, and then come here today with this wild story in a desperate attempt to save Miss Andre? You have heard her tell us that you would do anything for her. You would lie for her, murder for her.
We object, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
Where's your real proof, Mr. Regan?
Look at this one. You're the district attorney. Right, you know what I am. Hey, we both got a lot of dirty work to do in life. I'm gonna start. But you think we're both so low that if something passes us to which one kneels, we no longer have eyes to see it? I loved her. She loved Faulkner. That's our only proof.
That is all, Mr. Regan.
Hey, Miss Flynn, you might need this.
Your Honor, the defense rests.
Any witnesses in rebuttal?
Your Honor, if you please, the prosecution has one. Roberta Van Rensselaer.
Roberta Van Rensselaer.
Mr. Whitfield, have you any objection if I obtain a court order to examine the body in Evergreen Cemetery?
I have no objection, Miss Stevens, but that body's been cremated.
Cremated? Why was that done?
Well, the body was in such a condition after the fall, we thought it was the best thing to do.
And for no other reason?
Well, it has been a custom in our family for many years.
Mr. Whitfield, where were you on the night of January 16th?
I was at home.
Have you any witnesses to that?
Miss Stevens, I'm not in the habit of providing myself with alibis, and then I had to keep track of my activities and provide witnesses for them. But if you insist, I did speak with my daughter that night.
Mr. Whitfield, how many cars do you own?
4.
What are they?
One is a black sedan, and that's what you're driving at, but it's not the only black sedan in eastern Massachusetts.
You've just returned by plane from California.
Yes,
You flew it yourself.
yes,
You're a licensed pilot,
I am.
and yet that story of Mr. Regan's about you running away and burning his plane in New Jersey is nothing but a lie in your opinion?
It is.
Then who wrote that check for $5,000?
I did.
Explain yourself.
We all know Mr. Reagan's profession. He had threatened my daughter. I preferred to buy him off rather than risk the life of my only child. So on January the 6th, I gave him a check for $5,000.
You mean on January 16th?
No, January 6th.
This check is dated January 16th.
Yes. Reagan added a 1 to make it the 16th.
You mean he changed the date?
Why don't you call back that handwriting specialist and ask her?
Oh, kindly refrain from advising me. Your daughter and your fortune are your most cherished possessions, aren't they?
Yes.
Then what would you do to the man who stole your money and deserted your daughter for another woman?
We object, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
Exception, Your Honor. You hated Faulkner. You wanted to break him. You suspected his intentions of staging a fake suicide. The words Mr. Youngquist heard you say prove it, didn't you?
I suspected nothing of the kind.
On January 16th, didn't you spend the day following Faulkner?
Certainly not.
Didn't you follow him as soon as he left the penthouse that night?
No.
You did not have any particular information about his activities at that time?
None.
You did not hear about the $10 million he transferred to Wayne Series?
I never heard of it.
I killed
Get
him.
back, weirdo.
Oh, truth, so help me God. I didn't move back to $10 million because I told him.
Now, look here, my man. You can't just come in here and
That's all,
disrupt
Mr.
this
Whitfield.
court like this.
Kindly take the stand, Mr. Youngquist. Mr. Youngquist, you told Whitfield about the transfer?
Yes, I did. I didn't know it was a secret. That day I told him about the $10 million, the Buenos Aires. That day I knew him on January 16th.
Oh, what kind of frame-up is this?
You told Whitfield at noon.
Yes, I did.
That's all, Mr. Youngquist.
Youngquist, were you alone with Mr. Whitfield when you told him?
Yes.
That is the work of an ex-convict against John Graham Whitfield.
Yes.
That's all.
The bailiff will escort Mr. Youngquist out of the courtroom. The defense may proceed with closing arguments.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, in a few moments you will be called upon to decide the fate of the world. Your very life rests in your hands, and I am here to plead for that life. Karen Andre has confessed here to you many things which may arouse you against her, but she is not being tried for those things. She is only being tried for the murder of Lauren Faulkner. And to convince yourselves of that
attorney may now conclude her case.
Your Honor, lady Faulkner was killed on the night of January 16th. He was murdered. He was shot in that penthouse, and the recently discharged gun was found there by the police. Now, the defense claims that he fired the gun himself in an attempted suicide, but that gun bore only the fingerprints of Karen Andre and of nobody else. That gun was the property of Larry Regan, who was in the apartment that night, although she has sworn that she had never seen him before. According to the testimony of the housekeeper, Larry Regan was her lover, and with him, she conspired to ship $10 million to South America. Where did they get such a sum? By forging the name of John Raymond Whitfield. Now, why did they do this? A child will give you the answer. Karen Andre hated Mrs. Faulkner because he had married another woman and then discharged her from his office. She was determined to accomplish two things. First, to avenge herself on Faulkner, and then seize his money and thus ensure for herself the depraved luxury to which she had become accustomed. And both these things she planned with her new lover, Larry Regan. And so between them, they concocted this diabolically clever alibi, this confusion of corpses, this cock and bull story, the sheer impudence of which almost carried to success. On January 16th, Lefty O'Toole was lured from his home in answer to a telephone call from Larry Regan and was later found dead. On January 16th, the money was shipped to South America. On January 16th, Bjorn Faulkner was shot to death and his body hurled to the sidewalks so that the condition of the body might both conceal the bullet wound and make identification difficult. And on the night of January 16th, Lefty O'Toole's body is stolen and taken by airplane to New Hampshire by Larry Regan and claimed and the body burned. And finally, a check for $5,000 was taken from John Raymond Whitfield by Blackman, and the date changed in the ridiculous attempt to implicate him in the crime. These are the facts in this case, a case so strong I can conceive of no other verdict than the one I asked you to return, murder in the first degree.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the bailiff will now escort you to the jury room. I shall ask you to consider your verdict carefully, omitting all personal prejudices and sympathies. I shall ask you to adhere strictly to the evidence, and bear in mind the gun, the fingerprints on it, and the admitted forgeries, and the motives to which may have caused the crime to be committed. You are to determine whether Karen Andre is guilty of the murder of Bjorn Faulkner. You may bring in a verdict of acquittal or murder in the first degree.
But I felt the crash could have been prevented had Faulkner lived.
I found only two valuable things from this earth: my whip over the world and Karen Andre.
A certain peculiarity in the handwriting led me to claim that the letter was forged.
No lights. Karen Andre's white gown shimmering in the moonlight. Faulkner leaning against the parapet. He pushes him when Walter's away. He goes over the parapet, down.
It was impossible to determine. It could have been the wound or the fall.
But he realized his past mistakes and he was ready to atone for them. When I came into his life,
I didn't know. I see now. Who killed Faulkner? Because he
he laughed like the pagan she did and said it was men kissing her butt like a tiger.
He went down a ravine and he wakened and he was put on the spot at the Tobin Bridge.
You think we're both so I loved her. She loved Faulkner. That's how it was.
You're mistaken. I am capable of murder. For your and Faulkner's sake.
Attention of the court. Prisoner, rise and face the jury. Jury, rise and face the prisoner. Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have reached a verdict, Your Honor.
What say you?
We find that the due deliberation, the defendant is not guilty.
One. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Your Honor, I ask that the prisoner be discharged.
Prisoner, face the court.
The prisoner is discharged, but the court sees no reason to thank the jurors for a verdict which, in my opinion, is contrary to the evidence. I shall order the names of these jurors be stricken from the roll for 5 years. The court stands adjourned.